Hey, everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. For the second time ever, we have a repeat guest on our show. We've got Claudia over from, well, she's one of our freight fraud fighters, if I can get that out right. She's from, trying to remember right off the top of my head, General Transportation down there in Arkansas. So stick with us. We're going to tap back into some more of her lived and learned knowledge throughout the industry and pass that information along to you. So stick with us. We have a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, Claudia, what's going on?
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming back on. It's awesome. This is the second time that we've ever had a repeat guest, so I'm stoked to catch back
Yay.
up with you and see what you've been up to. So
Thank
before
you
we
so
dive
much.
in, yeah, definitely. So before we dive in, just in case anyone didn't catch the last episode, shame on you. Make sure you go back and watch that. There's tons of great content within there. But if you would, give us a high level of just who you are and what your role in the industry is today.
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Claudia, and I work for the Decker family. I've been in this industry for about 3 years. And the reason I say the Decker family rather than a company is because I work for multiple companies for them. We have General Transportation, that's our brokerage arm, and literally just brokerage out of there. And then we also have ART Transport, that's our asset side, and we run around 60 to 70 trucks there. We run pretty much east of I-35, dry van and reefer. We have owner ops that are leased on under and run under us, as well as company drivers. So I have an experience on both sides of the fence when it comes to those things. My role for each of those positions is for each of those companies is I source our insurance policies. I manage those throughout the year and file any claims, whether they be cargo claims, physical damage claims, all of those. All of that is what falls under my purview. And I also have taken on some roles that are risk management based when it comes to carrier vetting. As you, I'm sure most of you know, fraud is rampant in the industry today. Identity theft, there are so many different parts of it, and it's my job to try to mitigate that as well. So that's kind of, I got baptized by fire. In 2021 is when I joined the industry. As you know, some parts of the industry were going gangbusters, which was great, but that also left room for, as some things started to change, left some room for bad actors to get in and start doing some pretty shady things. And so people, seasoned vets in the industry, had not even seen that level of fraud. And that's where I learned. so I've been learning along all those ways, and certainly would be happy to try to pass on anything that I've learned so that you don't have to learn the hard way of any of those things.
Love it. And I mean, baptized by fire is a great way to put it. You're kind of in all the key areas of the industry that we need knowledge in. So you've got the experience for sure.
Certainly
So,
try to share that for if I can.
well, it's been a while since we chatted last. What's been new in your space of the industry since last time we spoke?
Sure. Well, I appreciate it. And I guess the biggest thing that personally that I've done is I was able to attend the Southwest Transportation Security Council
Okay.
um, uh, cargo theft, well, it's the cargo security meeting down in Fort Worth, Texas. This was the 14th annual one, I believe. And it was interesting how large it has grown, and it's grown because of what's happening in the industry. It was really neat to see because the audience was, it was around 300, 350 people there, all enclosed, all told. And there were people who were shippers, there were brokers, there were folks who worked in security, parts of like overhaul, and or security companies specifically, companies that have monitoring, companies that have GPS. It was hosted by BNSF. They were wonderful hosts to us. I believe that's where they've always had it. But so they talked about fraud and freight theft that's not just in one aspect, because I mean, typically I pretty much only see the trucking side of things, but
Right.
rail has issues that are going along. So it's just interesting to see all different aspects of that and get to learn from all of those folks in the industry.
That's fantastic. So I know there's a lot of these conferences going around in the industry. How important do you think these are to the freight professionals?
I will tell you, I can I can give you multiples, but I can give you one specific instance
Yeah.
from my experience, that these conferences aren't just for gaining knowledge. These
Mhm.
conferences and networking that you do, like attending webinars and things like that, it's not just about gaining the information, it's also about gaining the contacts.
Yeah.
And when I talk about that, I've always been a networker. It's just who I am. I was blessed with the gift of gab. I had to sit at the big round table when I was in kindergarten because I taught too much. This is nothing new. However, the way that it has been, people talk about in business, hey, make sure you network so that you have that next job, so that, all of that kind of thing, right? Networking in this environment and for this specific thing can truly help you recover freight. So
Yeah.
here's my example. I attended a webinar a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. I attended a webinar, and it was put on. Honestly, I'm trying to remember who even put it on. I think it was our insurance company. And the folks that were speaking were the cargo investigators for the state of Kentucky. It was Detective Steve Spurlock, and oh, that's going to frustrate me. I can't come up with the other name. But nonetheless, there are two detectives, and that's what they do. Cargo theft is their thing, and which is unique because that's not common in all of the states. So they put on this talk, and at the end of that, the end of the webinar, they put their contact information, and I held on to that. They explained to us how when you have a theft that is, for instance, your owner operators, right? Because I feel like a lot of this specific podcast, we're talking a lot to owner operators, independent contractors who have decided, hey, I'm going to leave the company, leaving a company, I'm going to start my own business. When you report a theft of a semi truck and trailer, it is treated like an auto theft, which isn't terrible. However, it negates the cargo part of it, and that needs to be addressed in a different way. And so, making sure that the law enforcement, especially when you're in a small community, I grew up in a town of about 3,000 people. So if I'm reporting to my local police department that a semi truck and trailer were stolen off of the Cargill lot down there, they're not their brains aren't going toward the cold product that's on there, right? And however many hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of beef is on that trailer,
Right.
they're looking at the semi trucks. They're not even thinking about the other ways that impact is there. So making sure that the law enforcement that you are reporting to understands the entirety of the theft is important. So I say that because in this instance that I'm giving you an example for, I had a carrier. So we're a brokerage. I had a carrier call one morning and say, "Hi, so we were on this load for you. We're supposed to. We had an overnight in our parking lot, in a fenced parking lot, and when we went to go pick it up this morning, it wasn't there. We dropped it at 6 p.m. last night. Got there this morning, it wasn't there. Fortunately for us, the carrier reported it to us immediately.
Mhm.
The thing is, this happened in the state of Kentucky. So they had reported to their local law enforcement about the theft. They said, "Hey, we reported the theft. Here's the report number." And I said, "Great." Now I looked at their insurance. I immediately pulled up their insurance and saw they had Travelers insurance. Travelers has their own cargo investigation. They're called the SIG, Security Investigation Group. Special Investigative Group. I apologize for not having that off the top of my head, but they're a great team that is specializes in cargo theft.
Mm.
And so I saw that he had their insurance, and I knew that it was in Kentucky. So these are two contacts that I immediately had. I said, you need to call Detective Spurlock in Kentucky. He's like, but I already reported it to whatever. I said, I don't care who you reported it to. Call Detective Spurlock right now. Also call Kyle at, or I think it was Kyle or Ryan, I can't remember which one, at Travelers, because that was the security, that was the SIG head for that region of the country.
Right.
And he said, I don't know who they are. I don't care that you don't know who they are. These are the two people that you need to call right now. I'm telling you, these are who you need to call. We recovered that tractor trailer and our freight within an hour,
Wow.
1 hour. When I tell people that who you know when it comes to cargo theft is remarkably important, it
Yeah.
is remarkably important, folks. When you have the person that you can reach out to say, hey, this just happened and this is what's going on, you are so much better equipped to be able to have that recovery.
Yeah.
Because listen, you have insurance for those purposes, right? I get it. But you still don't want to have a loss on your insurance, and you sure don't want to
Right.
have an entire trailer of loss on your insurance. So uh, these meetings are so remarkably important to meet the right folks, to so you go to the meeting, you learn all the information you're taking in. Oh, that's a new strategy the bad guys are using. Oh, I didn't realize that cell phone data could be used that way. I
Right.
didn't, oh, that's a new security feature that I didn't know was available. So you have all of this information that you're learning, but then in between and afterward and at lunch, you're meeting these folks and you're talking to law enforcement. You're talking to your the law, because the conference that I just went to was also law enforcement learning credit, or it's like a continuing education kind of credit. So
Okay.
there were quite a few law enforcement that were there, and so going there and making those connections,
Yeah.
so that whenever that time comes, nobody wants the time to come. I don't want the time to
Right.
come for any of you at all. I just know the bad guys are really good at being bad. And I know that there's a likelihood that this might happen to you. So if
Definitely.
that happens, you want to know who to call. And here's the, like, Scott Cornell is what the lead, one of the, like, my kind of lead contact at SIG at Travelers. And there are times that I don't know who to call, but I call him. Even if you don't know who to call, having someone that might know who to call, that's
Yeah.
important. So those are just the things that are just highly important from that. And again, just gaining great knowledge, and being able to do that. And it, I went to one in Southern California. I've made contacts at shippers and learned from them, because it's not just learning from the actual presentations, it's also learning from your fellow attendees.
Right.
The guy from Dyson I met at a conference in California, we were talking about strategies and things that we do. I was asking him, as a shipper, what are things that you guys do? And he mentioned some new, or not new, but some things that I hadn't thought of. And I thought, that's great. Like, we need to make sure that we start to implement that. So just great ways to be able to learn and add to your knowledge for preventing and taking care of yourself.
Definitely. I mean, it's so much to unpack there, but there's so much value to that for sure. I mean, just to have those processes in mind, because I mean, like,
Mhm,
what it simply comes down to is like somebody that drives a taxi is a lot more prone to getting pulled over and getting a ticket than I am,
mhm,
where maybe I just drive to and from work. If you're on the road all the time, it is what it is. When you're dealing with freight, we don't want
mhm,
this stuff to happen, but it's
right,
much more likely to happen.
mhm,
But if you
right,
don't even know the general process, which I'm
mhm,
sure a lot don't, a
mhm,
day can be getting eaten up really fast, calling the
mhm.
wrong people, getting transferred to the
Sure.
departments, etcetera. I mean,
Mhm,
not to equivalate it to, like, murder, but, I mean, you watch these CSI shows and they're like,
mhm,
first 24, like, as fast as you can get details in. I mean,
mhm,
like you said, you're able to contact the right person, get that nailed
mhm,
down in an hour.
mhm,
Few more hours gone by,
mhm.
that could have been long gone. I mean, there's
Absolutely.
much to be said for that, for sure.
Right. And by all means, that was a remarkably unique. That was a really big thing. Let me not set that up to say, like, that that's the
That is the
expectation of
standard.
all
No.
times. But it was just that, that's just a prime example of just
Yeah.
having those right contacts. you know, and and again, like knowing, um, I know that drivers talk to each other, right? But the things have changed in the way drivers communicate from my understanding. Like I grew up with an old school trucker. He was retired by the time I came along, but their entire thing was either sitting at a truck stop drink coffee or on the CB radio. Like that was
Yeah.
their level of communication. And that's obviously changed now. Drivers are on all the socials, and they're communicating on via phone or text and all of that, rather than on, I think CVs are only used now like when there's bad weather. So um but talking to other drivers, and learning about, where are the high risk places, where should you not park, where are and those are just small pieces of information that, if you don't think about it, but when you go into these large metropolitan areas, we all know Chicago, Memphis, DFW, pretty much all of Southern California. Not as much anymore Miami, but there are certainly places down in Florida. And when you're talking about places that are near ports, um, these are huge places that are going to be targets for cargo theft. And if
Yeah.
you are an owner operator, independent contractor who has to go through those areas, um, being aware of the safe places to be. It's like being a tourist in another country, like you want to make sure, like, should I get that Airbnb over there? Because it was really cheap and it looks really great, but maybe it's just in a really bad part of the area and you don't know
Right.
that. So being able to do that, those are just like truckers do that. This is us on this side of the business, like learning those other strategies and trying to do that too.
Most definitely. I mean, there's so much to know there, but it is really important, I think, to attend stuff like that, for both ends, to get the processes, but
Mhm,
also, to make those connections, meet those people,
mhm.
have those names in mind. Because I think it goes a lot farther if you hop on the phone and it's like, oh, I remember you. Like
Mhm.
that conversation is going to go a lot better than just
Right,
somebody doesn't know you from Adam. They're going to be a little more
right.
willing to help you and go the extra mile.
100%. Absolutely.
Well,
Um,
that's fantastic. So, I mean, within that's a neat conference, right? So we're talking about having law enforcement there, talking about the security aspect, et cetera.
mhm.
Uh, how does that side of things tie in with the general amount of fraud that we're seeing in the industry?
Um, it's so, there the straight theft, which is what a lot of owner operators are seeing, is obviously still a huge portion of what kind of theft is happening.
Yeah,
And so being in touch with the law enforcement to understand how those things, what information they need immediately. What information do you need right away? How can I get that to you? What's the best way for me to communicate with you? And those kind of things is really important for us on that side. And then when you think about the other parts of theft today, strategic theft, that's done in a different way, and law enforcement has to handle that in a different way.
yeah,
Different municipalities and law enforcement entities take those reports differently. Sometimes I, as a broker, can file that. Sometimes it has to be the cargo owner. So there are different ways to learn, and that's the thing that we learn when we're there and communicating with those folks is, in what way do I need to communicate this best with you? How can I help me help you? And that's really what it is, and what you're trying to utilize, and that's how we learn and can be better prepared to assist the law enforcement. And because if I just go and I'm like, hey, someone stole my tractor trailer. Okay, what's it look like? It's white. That's great. Um, how are they going to help me if that's all the information I'm giving them, right? So, knowing
there's
what you need
only
to give them on
one
the
white
front end.
tractor trailer out there.
There's only one. There's just the
Just
one.
the one.
But those are things that you as own that your viewers, as owner operators, independent contractors, these are things to think about. If your trailer is spick and span and perfectly white and has no markings on it whatsoever, it's a lot harder to find.
Yeah.
put a big number on it, put a really big number on it, wherever, put it on the side, put it on the back, put it on both. Heaven forbid we do both. But um, that sounds, I'm not trying to be tacky by saying like that sounds simple, but it's not something that's as commonly done. It's easier for my law enforcement partners to find your trailer if it's got a big mark on it.
Yeah.
And so those are just a unique mark, a unique number, whatever that is, to be able to help. I mean, there are databases now that can be utilized by literally putting in letters. You say, I'm putting in number 2345 because that's my trailer number, and I've got access to a database that takes pictures of trucks and trailers everywhere, and so I can put that number in, and now I've found my truck because I found a photo of it somewhere. So there are reasons to have those things marked, guys. I promise you that a plain white truck. I apologize. Someone just rang my doorbell. Like
There you
my
go.
dogs are going crazy. If you can hear that, sorry about that. Um, but the having a white tractor trailer, it's more it's easier to be what's it called? I am so sorry about
Like
that.
recognized.
Um, it's easier to be uh, misrepresented for
Oh,
someone to just put a small, magnet on the top of on top of your DOT and say like, oh yeah, I'm ART Transport and I'm coming in to pick up this load when
right.
it's not our driver going in to do that. So there are, again, having unique markings. Those things are important for you to be able to have a better um, chance of recovery if those things happen to you. And those are things that we learn as we go and attend these conferences and talk to other law enforcement and people in the industry.
That's fantastic. Well, so I'm sure they went through a lot there. Was there any other hot takes that you took away from the convention?
Um, I think that's probably the biggest thing, was just that I met the folks from Genlogs there, GENLOGS. That's a company that is coming up, that's kind of working in the security. Part of their platform works in security and helping recover trailers and tractors.
Right.
And that's actually where I was referencing with the numbers. Again, we can reach out and there's help to be had if we can identify your unit, but not everybody can see that license plate on the back. It's a little harder to see. LPRs are important and law enforcement utilizes those, but again, like having those big identifying marks is something that makes recovery a lot better and easier. So I would say that's probably the biggest takeaway that I had. Just making sure that we're trying to do that to the best of our ability.
Definitely. Now, for somebody getting into this industry, I mean, obviously, starting out as a company driver, but getting into it as a business owner, jumping in as an owner operator, and eventually with plans to grow that fleet. Um, are you aware of any kind of convention or anything of this nature that kind of caters to somebody new to the industry, or where is a good educational point for someone like that to jump into before they dive in as a business owner?
Funny you asked that. Coming up later this month, the Broker Carrier Summit.
Yeah,
Um,
there we go.
so Broker Carrier Summit is the kind of bigger meetings are twice a year. They also have some small kind of breakout things because they know, if you live in like, I don't know, North Dakota or something, like it might not be easy for you to get to all the conferences, but
Right.
they might do like a smaller thing, in I don't know, Boise or something. I don't even know how close are those places, but anyway, they're having some smaller networking and smaller training things that are available for folks to do. So I would suggest that the Broker Carrier Summit is really cool because it's unique in that it is designed for carriers and brokers to meet. Like they're literally networking. It's like the dating thing, but it's not. It's carriers and brokers that are like
Right.
doing the round robin circle thing and changing over, and like, hey, this is a section for flatbed. So if you're a carrier and you have flatbeds, come over here. And if you're a broker and you have flatbed freight to broker, come over here. And so you have these opportunities to get to meet. They do presentations about fraud. They do presentations about what's happening with the FMCSA. FMCSA is going to be there to give some updates on things that they're doing. They have attorneys to give presentations that talk about mitigating their risk, things that they can do as owner operators. I specifically met when I went to Broker Carrier Summit in October of last year. I met an owner operator and we were discussing fraud. He came to us and said, why am I not getting onboarded from these companies? Because
Mm.
X, Y, and so he starts talking about like, I'm having trouble getting onboarded. I understand that brokers are trying to fight fraud, but
That's a
here
tongue
I
twister.
am, like, it is. Thank you. You're welcome. To myself. But he said, I'm a legitimate guy. I'm just trying to do my business. Well, he actually wound up onboarding with us 2 or 3 months later. Like he popped up. And I actually had someone who reached out to me and said, this guy said that he knows you or something. The thing is, when you get to meet somebody in person, then you have a better understanding of them. And so when you go and when you look at, because as brokers, we're looking at a screen, we're looking at documents in front of us, and the documents that are sent, and trying to go from there to decide, are you really who you say you do you really have the trucks you say that you have? Are you really where you say you are? And we're trying to judge all of that off of a screen. And we all know that when you get to know somebody, and don't get me wrong, like, I know there are people who are pro scam artists, like, in person, and that's smaller set of that kind of situation, but for the most part, when you get to meet somebody in person, you can have that gut check and you can recognize, um, no, these people are the real deal and they're telling me and so you have more knowledge to be able to say, hey, listen, yeah, we're definitely going to onboard them. Yeah, I talked to him. I know that they don't have any inspections, but look, his ELD is connected. I talked to this guy. He's legit. Don't worry about it. Send it over to me and I'll take care of it and get them onboarded. So Broker Carrier Summit is a great thing, especially for drivers that are starting out. There are a lot of companies, a lot of brokerages now that are requiring a year of, it depends on a certain age of authority before they will onboard.
Mm.
Some are 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. A year is very common. Our brokerage does 9 months, but that's not the end all be all, right? It doesn't mean that you've been driving for 10 years as a company driver and you're going over to a new authority, your own authority, new, and they're like, oh, you're a baby driver. I'm not a baby driver. I've been driving for some time. I have experience,
Right.
but you don't see that because you just see a piece of paper that says that my authority is new. Well, if I've met you and I'm like, hey, I know Mike. I've talked to Mike about his experience. We talked about some of the shippers that he used to, places that he used to go in and out of. I understand. Saw his truck, talked to him, or whatever that is. He's got his stuff connected. I know that even though he has new authority, he's a decent guy. We've already talked about how they run their business. I don't have any concerns about him going out of business tomorrow and not being able to follow through with any obligations that they have. So yeah, we're going to onboard him, even though that he doesn't meet our normal level of time of authority. So these are the things that are great about being at the Broker Carrier Summit. Um, and So, Alex, you know that I am who I am, and I'm always going to tell just the truth and put stuff out there, right? There
Yeah.
are people there. You as independent contractors and owner operators, you're going to see a lot of things back and forth on the socials about some of these conferences. They're going to say that conference is meant for a money grab. It's fraud. There's a lot of negativity out on the socials, for all kinds of things, right? It's not just related to conferences in our industry. It's about a lot of stuff. But what I will say is treat that like you would any other type of feedback that you're going to get on the internet. Look at
Right.
who is providing that type of feedback, and make sure that look at reputable sources for it. Because and you can look at the stuff that's available online to say the gentleman who started the broker carrier summit, it was an idea by a guy who owned a brokerage. He had a partnership in a brokerage, and he's like, man, I think this would be a good idea. And someone else was like, I think that would be a good idea. They were sitting down having a drink, I think, and they dreamed it up, and it started remarkably small. And then after they'd done a couple, he's like, man, this is a really big deal, and it takes a massive amount of my time. I can't give myself to my brokerage and give myself to broker carrier summit, but I think this is
Right.
really important, and I'm going to sell my section of the brokerage, and I'm going to focus just on broker carrier summit. And so some people saw that and said, like, that guy is made negative remarks about that. I don't find that valid at all. I think that when you recognize that something is very important to you, that's passionate, and you want to move forward with that, and recognize that you have to close another chapter in your life to do that, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And we, I understand that as owner operators, independent contractors, every dime you spend is very, very important, right? And so I know that there's a cost to attend these things, but look at trying to register early bird. Look for specials. I know they actually had Broker Carrier Summit had some special deals just for small owner operators, and so there are things that are available for you to do. Some of the things are free. The conference that I went to in at Fort Worth, that was a free conference. There was no cost for me to attend that. So looking at which ones are free that you can attend and be part of, like, look for those. I'm not someone who's going to push a driver or an independent to go to. Well, there are any number of remarkably large, large, large conferences in our industry, and I don't want to necessarily like point them out, but that I'm not that person who's going to say you need to go to that because there's like a big concert and it's a big party or what. I'm
Right.
not interested in that type of conference for myself, much less for an independent owner operator who is trying to get. The days that you're off the road are very important. And I know, like, every day that you're not driving, you're losing money. So you're not only paying to be there, you're also losing money from being there. And so we want to make sure that those conferences are remarkably valuable to you. And that's why I talk about going to Broker Carrier Summit as that's something that literally is designed for you to meet other people and make money, like, to
Yeah.
do that. So that would be for me as an independent. And Matt's was a big one. I haven't been to Matt's myself, so I can't provide a massive a good reference to it. But I just had a bunch of friends go recently, and they thought it was great. But again, I couldn't speak to that from an independent owner or contractor point of view. But Broker Carrier Summit, I certainly can. And like I said, the Southwest. There's a Midwest Transportation Security Council that meets in Chicago. Well,
Okay.
outside of Chicago, there's a Southwest that's down in Texas, and there's a West out in California. And I think there's one out in Philly, but I truly can't remember the location of that one, so I won't try to say what that is. But
Lots of
those
education
conferences are
around
free.
though.
Hmm?
Sounds like lots of education possibilities around though.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's fantastic because somebody getting into the industry, like working as, a company driver, you learn a lot. But then there's a whole different side of the game when you become a company owner, right? There's so many more aspects that you need to learn and learn well to manage your business that you never needed exposure to before. And there's a lot of vital aspects to that, especially when it comes to being able to afford it all as well.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
it makes me think there. So you have a lot of background in the insurance side of things. Now,
Mhm.
somebody getting in, jumping from that company driver to being an owner operator, like what kind of expense are they looking at as a new business owner there, and how can you manage that? Because I mean, insurance and trucking's pricey.
It's huge. It's huge. I feel like insurance and fuel are probably the largest expenses that an independent is going to have. Like, right,
Yeah,
that's immediate out of pocket. I mean, well, no, because you've got your truck payment, depending on if your truck
fair.
is paid
Yeah,
off, right? Aside from the actual unit itself. So Yeah, so what I'm always going to talk to drivers about when it comes to insurance is your history. So even though you're a new company, you have your own driving history that you're bringing forward, just like if you were, you're changing policies of your own personal vehicle. So
Right.
having you as a company, when you're a company driver as well, that is still going to hit your driving record if something happens on those. So you want to make sure that you are keeping all of that clean, as clean as possible. Of course, there are times that things happen, right? But there's so many. I have seen so many inspections. I've seen so many tickets for silly things that absolutely are preventable with proper pre-trips, with proper post-trips, with making sure you have your documents in order. And so definitely want to make sure that you keep your driving record, to its top notch that you possibly can with that. But on top of that, when you go to your insurance agent, I would strongly suggest to use an agent. There, you can absolutely go online and get policies without having an agent involved in that. What I will say to that is that you don't have anyone to explain to you the nuances of your policy and what
Right.
things you might need. So, there are lots of exclusions that are in policies that you might not be aware of on the front end if you are not talking to someone about that policy and you're just clicking buttons online trying to get the cheapest rate just to get you going to start working, right? I understand you want to pay the least you can for insurance. Wholeheartedly, I understand that. I also understand that if you don't have the right policy or you have an exclusion that you're not aware of, you can have a cargo claim that will sink you.
Yeah.
And I don't want that for you. I'm not trying to get drivers to spend more money on insurance. I have no vested interest in that happening whatsoever. I
Right.
I I know I source our policies. I know what that's about. But again, you want to make sure that you have the proper coverage. So if you're gonna I always suggest people to utilize an agency. If you're not going to utilize an agency, you want to utilize someone that's reputable. Um, to There's a Cottingham and Butler is our insurance agency, and they
Okay.
have a program called Flywheel that is designed for small, like 10 or less or 5 or less units. And it allows the carrier to go online and submit information kind of like you would in that, like I don't have an agent part of it, but you also have the full backing of the agency when you have questions, to be able to say, hey, how does this work with the policy? And you've got someone who's turning around your COIs for you right away, and you have the online access to be able to send those over for certificate holders when you need them. So there are ways that you can go about having an agent and still having a less expensive policy, or
Yeah.
not having not necessarily having an agent, but still having an agency that is reputable that can help you navigate that world better. And so those are some of the things I would tell you on the front end for that. If you're trying to, bring that rate down, be sure to talk to whoever that is about what things that you're willing to do to assist in that. There's an insurance company, I think we talked about it before, that when you plug in your ELD
Mhm.
to them or give them access to it or however that works, they will utilize that in order to help you like decrease your rate. That only works if you're like driving correctly though. Like don't do that. If
Yeah.
you're breaking rules all the time, you probably don't want to do that one. But again, like there are things that if you're a remarkably safe driver, that's a really good avenue for you to look into. If you're a driver who happens to, let's say you're a regional guy or something, or girl, and you happen to be in Memphis. We all know Memphis is a hot spot for cargo theft, right?
Yeah.
So if you say, "Hey, I'm domiciled in Memphis or anywhere around Memphis," it's instantly going to have red flags. Have a secure parking. And I mean, when I say secure, I don't mean someone's backyard. I literally mean a secure parking that's got a fence all the way around, that's got a gate that closes, that's got specified access to who can get in and out, that has cameras available. And when you can say to your insurance company. These are the things that I'm doing to prevent that. When I'm in my
Yeah.
area that I know is a hotspot, I'm always here on the front end. Don't make them ask you to do that. When you do that on the front end, they're like, hey, this is someone who's going to take great care of what they're doing.
Right.
This is someone that we need to insure, and we can make a better bet on them when it comes to the rate.
Definitely, definitely. Now talking about having an insurance agent and kind of the price factor as well. Here's a little bit of a two-parter for you. So I know a lot of insurance agents, some of them are like multi-company, I guess, or multi-policy types or whatever, and some are just like dedicated to, throw in your major insurance provider here type thing.
Mhm.
Is it better to have someone that's able to write policies for various different companies to kind of judge those prices and what they're able to do, or do you find it just the same to get somebody that's for one carrier type thing?
All the options are always good.
Right.
Our agent, I mean, like I said, like we have our agency is Cunningham and Butler, and they're always going to try to source the right policy for us. So they know what our needs are, and they'll take those needs and our information and go to essentially to their market and figure out what is best for us, and then we'll bring back. They may quote with multiple actual underwriters, but they're only going to bring me like one or two.
Right.
They're going to say these two are the best that we were offered. And if they're close, maybe there's a little bit different coverage and the price is a little different, they'll talk to us about that. Or if they're like, listen, this one was bar none, like this was the best option for us, for you, with what we're looking at. And so I would always encourage you to try to find somebody who can offer multiple different options on that. But, I know that some guys, they're like, my dad was a driver, or my house, my car, my everything else is insured through, I don't know, State Farm or something, and
Right.
that's who I'm gonna use my same guy for that. That's cool. Absolutely. If you've got a relationship with somebody, I'm not
Mhm.
telling you to leave your local, this person that you've done business with forever. If they can get you a decent rate, I would still maybe quote outside of that and see
Sure.
what the options are. But I'm by no means am I saying to leave that. But those relationships do matter, and they are important to be able to call somebody immediately and say, "Hey, this has happened. Can you help me through that?" Versus someone that you don't know that does have options at multiple policies.
Right. Now, what about for somebody that's, kind of established as an owner operator, but looking to branch out as a fleet owner, bring on some additional trucks? What does that process look like when you're, adding additional trucks to insurance?
Sure. So the first thing you want to make sure is that you definitely communicate with your, whether it's your agent or your agency, your underwriter, whoever that is, that you're looking to grow your fleet. Because you want to make sure that all of the units that you have are going to be covered, and you want to make sure you have the right documentation in place. So if I'm an owner operator and I have my own carrier, I'm my own MC, I've got my own authority. My cousin, my brother, my neighbor has a truck, and they decided they want to run under me. We can do that. You can do that. 100% you can do that, but you need to make sure that your lease is proper. You have to have certain wording in your lease to sign on an owner operator. So, and the thing is, a lot of owner operators maybe don't know that because you've been the one signing it, and you just, you look at it and you're like, you look at the parts that are important to you, like how much do I have to pay out and how much do I get,
Right.
but there is lots of specific language that's guidelined by the federal government that has to be in all those contracts. So if you want to you want to make sure that you've got your owner operator lease that looks right, that looks good and is proper for them to sign on with you, and then make sure that within your insurance policy that you've got those units added. There's different types of policies. So you can have an any auto policy, which is so you don't have to report constantly. Then I don't know how that works as far as like how you report on that side. I have a monthly reporting schedule that I do. So I report monthly all of my bins. We still
Okay.
add units as they come on. But then at the end of the month, I do an audit and we make sure that we're all squared away and we have everything. And if something happened to slip through, we can make sure we get that added and all of that's taken care of. But you want to make sure that you, as an owner operator who is bringing someone else on, that that unit is added when it needs to be added, and that it has the proper coverage. Make sure that all that coverage matches. Your owner operator that's signing on to you, they may have certain guidelines for their policies that they need for the lease of their truck. So if they don't own that truck outright, and like let's say they're buying it from, I don't know, Penske or MHC or whomever, insert name of truck,
Yeah.
company here, or their bank. Sometimes the bank or the leasing company have specific things that they say we need to be named as an additional insured, or we need to be named this, or the deductible has to be to this level. Well, maybe you as an owner operator, you have a $5,000 or a $10,000 deductible because you'd rather have a lower monthly rate. But your owner operator that sign on to you, their leasing agency says, well, they can only have $1,000 deductible. So you just want to make sure that all of those documents are in line and you're communicating those things back and forth to your agency and to your agent, or again, whomever it is that you're dealing with for that, to make sure that all that's lined up properly.
Fantastic. Man, you are a wealth of knowledge as always. We've touched on so much today, but anything on your mind that you feel, somebody getting into this game, they've been that company driver, but now they're going out into the business. Anything else we haven't touched on that is just vital to know?
Sure. Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and please understand, like, there are some things I consider myself a subject matter expert on. This kind of isn't it, really. I'm more so, these are things that I've just learned that I hope that you can take this information and
Definitely.
be better in that. But there's one thing that I talk to owner operators often from the brokerage side. If there's a cargo claim or if there's some sort of claim along those lines, and learn all kinds of things from them that they do or do not know.
Right.
I recently spoke to an owner operator, and he said, I said something about his factoring company, and I said, has your factoring company paid you for this load? And he said, yes. I said, okay. Do you know what your timeline is for your chargeback? Because we were holding it until something got settled. We communicated about it; it was not a problem. But he said, what do you mean a chargeback? Like, he didn't understand the chargebacks. He didn't understand the timeline for that within his own company, within his own situation. He didn't
Right.
know, well, if they don't pay it and then I wind up getting a charge back, and if I route it back through them, he didn't understand how any of that worked. So I would just say that independent contractors, owner operators, whomever, wherever your pay things are happening, whether it be directly from a broker, directly from a shipper, or you're going through your factoring company, whoever is paying you that money, those terms are things you need to understand.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you understand what documents you have to provide in order to get paid. And you want to understand the timeline in which those things happen. If anything goes wrong, what is now what? If I don't get paid for that load via the factoring company, are they going to charge it back? If they do, when do they? Will there be another fee if we send it back through? Can I get a letter of what's it called? Letter of release ROA, release of assignment, if it's just one load later on and I get it paid back. So those are things to ask about, and just make sure that you understand those on the front end. So I would just say, um, make sure you know where that money's going and how it's working, and what's going to happen with that,
Yeah.
where you're getting hit for that.
Most definitely. And I think that's something we could probably do an entire episode around, right? But
Mhm.
just to qualify that for somebody, getting in, it's like, I've never personally dealt with a factoring company before, right? So if I understand right, they factor a load, they get paid for it, but if that factoring company doesn't get paid within a certain amount of time, they're going to
Mhm.
charge that carrier back, correct? Is that the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that, from my understanding, because I only have knowledge of the way of what our asset company does with our factoring company,
Right.
but I feel like that's not necessarily like a standard 90 days across the industry. I feel like it's separate. I don't know if it's based on like the factoring company themselves or their relationship with that client, but those are things that you should certainly ask about and know on
Definitely.
that front end. And if you don't get paid for that, what does that mean? How does that sort out? So you know how those work too. But factoring companies are great. By no means am I saying it's not a good thing. I mean, I understand like for drivers to be able to have that payback, right away versus having to
Right.
wait 30 days. There are great factoring companies out there, by no means, but I would also say um, check the reputation. There are a couple that are not so great. So just to make sure that you know who you're dealing with when it comes to something like that. Ask for references from your friends, from other drivers, or from other folks in the industry. If someone wants to reach out to me directly, I'd be happy to tell you my blacklist of a couple of them, but I probably shouldn't do that on this particular thing. And that's not us being tacky about anything. I mean, listen, brokers will get blacklisted from factoring companies too. But there are a few that are just very well known to be involved with fraudulent carriers. And it's a disservice to legitimate carriers when they don't know and they get mixed up with those either factoring companies or insurance agencies.
Yeah.
So you just want to make sure that whoever you're dealing with in those aspects does not have a reputation for dealing with the bad guys, because that's going to get you on a block list when you don't even know that you're on a block list and you haven't even done anything wrong. So I'm making sure that you know what that is. But again, great companies out there all often will help you with uh, credit checks of who
Yeah.
you're doing business with. Our factoring company on our asset side, like we run credit checks for everyone who wants to onboard with us as a customer. And there's sometimes they don't pass. We're not going to do business with you if you don't pass a credit check.
Right.
And so you as an owner operator may not have the ability to do that quite as easily on your own as you would if you have a factoring company that's working with you. So just some things to take into account. Whatever that percentage is that worth these things and what they can provide me?
Fantastic. That's great insight for sure. So we're in, geez, April now. What's coming up for you in the rest of 2025, logistics wise?
So I've recently been asked to sit on the board for a freight fraud task force.
Nice.
So it's being started by some um, folks in the industry that are just as passionate, maybe even more so than I am regarding freight fraud, which is kind of that's saying something. But yeah, so I've been designated the secretary because I had AI that would go to meetings and come back and give us notes. um, but that's a great thing that I see coming, that we're formalizing like into an actual nonprofit, like a legal. I've had an unofficial group like that for some time, but this is like a legitimate, and there will be educational pieces that are coming out. Again, this is something that once we get this to the level that it will be great for independent owner operators and contractor and owner operators to be involved with and understand, because we will be providing educational pieces for those folks in the industry who need to know that. If you're an independent guy and you're like, hey, I don't know what to look for on a rate con or on a BOL to see if it's been fraudulently manipulated. I don't know what to look for brokerages. I don't know what brokerages have a reputation for being for being I don't say double rate, but brokerages who have a reputation for doing bad business, right? Because there are bad brokers just like there are shady carriers. So let's be clear: all aspects of the industry have some sort of shadiness. There's opportunity for that in all those realms. So, as a freight fraud task force, our intention is to be able to bring representatives from all parts of that industry: factoring companies, vetting companies, owner operators, safety, so that we're coming together in shippers and saying, hey, this is what we can do to help mitigate fraud. And these are educational pieces that we can provide to those people who are vital. I mean, over the road drivers, like drivers, you are literally driving our business. We
Right.
cannot do what we do without you. And we want to be able to provide you education to help you protect yourself. And so that's something that's big on my plate that I'm doing. And I have a little side project of a website that I don't really want to say yet, because we'll see how I do as far as timeline of getting that up there. But I do have a YouTube now that's out there that has several there's a playlist of videos, just of podcasts that I've
Okay.
been fortunate to be able to guest on. So I enjoy being able to do this and talk about, I mean, I could talk about the industry all day long. And as you have seen, it doesn't take much to get me going on that and just let me keep
Lots of
talking.
gold content, lots of gold. I mean,
But
well, so much
it's
lived
good
and learned
information.
knowledge,
So
though. It is good stuff. I mean, this is exactly the stuff that somebody coming in that, when you're a company driver, you're not exposed to all of it, right? Like
that's
you
right.
have this kind of tunnel vision view, but then when
Mhm,
you go on to be a company owner, it's a whole
mhm.
different ball game. And if you're not ready for it, it will just kind of bury you.
It will. I will say, I have a cousin who has worked in cargo claims for over a decade.
Right.
Uh, I I had no idea that I would be in this part of the industry at all, and I rolled into it, and here I was, a year and a half in, and I reached out to him about something. And so he can absolutely help me when it comes to claim stuff. But there's so much of the industry that I have been exposed to that he has no idea about, because he works for a huge corporation that there's somebody else who handles all of the other parts. He
Right.
is the claim guy. So I handle claims, but there's a whole different aspect of the company that I am privy to be able to see that he doesn't see. So you as owner operators, you've seen a certain amount of the business as an independent, as a driver for a company. Vitally important. We love you. We need you. Also, there's all kinds of things that you haven't seen. We haven't even begun to talk about ELDs and compliance and safety and all of that kind of thing. So there's just a lot out there to be aware of that you may not know, and we're certainly happy to try to help in any way that we can provide that for you.
Love that. And I'm really excited about this task force you're talking about. So I'm definitely gonna have to keep in touch with you, and we'd love to
Definitely.
have you back on to talk about that as it kind of grows and flourishes. Because you're mentioning having somebody on from different aspects of the industry. I think there's so
Hmm.
much power and insight to that. So
Hmm.
really excited to see where that goes, and love to have you and maybe the rest of the team back on in the future to talk about how that's shaping up.
That would be great. We'd love to.
Fantastic. Well, it has been amazing chatting with you once again, tapping into all that wealth of knowledge that you have. Until next time, we'll give you a chance for some shameless plugs here. How can people get a hold of you, learn more about your business, and even the task force?
Sure. I just got my email for the website. So it's Claudia@freightchurch.com. You can reach me there. Um, Throw it out there. Whoever wants to send me an email, contact me there. You're welcome to do that. I'm happy to tell you, if it's a question about insurance, I may not know. Listen, I don't have all the answers by any means, but I can probably get you in touch with someone who does. If you're looking for an agent, and you're a fleet owner, I've got people I can put you in touch with. If you're looking for an agent as an independent operator, I've got people I can put you in touch with. This isn't me trying to gain anything for myself. I don't get anything for that. I'm just saying I know somebody who I think is trustworthy, and I'd be happy to refer you. If you're So please feel free to reach out to me on that. I'm on LinkedIn, Claudia Catlett. You see, our company is General Transportation, so you'll see me on there. And if you want to watch any of the videos of other content that I've been part of, you can hit up the YouTube. It's Freight Church, Freight Church. What is it? YouTube.com/Freight Church. I don't know how those things line out, but anyway, if you look up Freight Church on YouTube, you'll find me there.
Love it. And we'll make sure to get those links from you and put them in the comments below or the show notes below as well. So definitely encourage you guys to check all of that out. Claudia, thank you so much again for taking some time out of your day to let us come on and pick your brain a little bit.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so very much. You guys have a great weekend. Be safe out there.
You as well. Thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a great day.